We are sending data. We are live. Welcome back, everybody, to the Offsetting Penalties podcast. Instagram, we're having troubles going live right now with Instagram. I don't know what's going on. We'll figure that out later. We are live on YouTube, recording this right after Thursday Night Football just wrapped up. If you're watching this ahead of time, if you're here live, I appreciate you being here. And wow, we got a lot to talk about. Episode 17 of the Offsetting Penalties podcast. Today, we are here to talk about Week 16. That's what we're here to talk about, is to preview all the games. But I feel like a lot of this podcast needs to go towards talking about the game that just wrapped up. So we're going to get into that. Today is a recap day, and we're going to recap this game and then preview the rest of the games. I don't really know what I'm saying right now. I'll be honest. I'm a little all over the place, everybody. I just watched maybe the game of the year. Let's not waste any more time. Let's just get into it. You guys see it on the screen. The Rams lose to the Seahawks. They don't beat them. It looked like they were going to beat them. It was looking real good for the Rams. The Seahawks come back from 16 down, win the game in overtime, go for two to convert the game-winning two-point conversion, wide open tight end. The Rams didn't have a single defender near, but it was so close to getting tipped at the line of scrimmage. Sam Darnold, who had a really rough game, pulled it out there at the end, put together a brilliant drive to drive the Seahawks down the field and win the game in overtime. I mean, it was looking like there was a point in the game where Sam Darnold threw his second pick of the game to Kobe Turner it was a beautiful play call by the Rams defensive coordinator where he sent the nickel and dropped D lineman into coverage, and Darnold got fooled by it, threw it right to the D lineman, and it just looked like the game earlier in the year where it's like, oh my God, Sam Darnold's throwing more picks. This defense has him seeing ghosts. It looks bad. And then the Rams go 3 and out. And the announcers and everyone watching, it's like, okay, whatever, they're going to give the ball back to Seattle. And then they punted it to Rashid Shaheed, who's one of the most electric, dynamic playmakers in the league when he gets the ball in his hands, in my opinion. And he houses it. And we're talking like, oh my goodness, like this is like all of a sudden Seattle has some life. Like all of a sudden we're cooking with hot grease here if we're a Seahawks fan. And they get the 2-point conversion, 8-point game. Rams go 3 and out again. Seattle drives down the field, scores again very quickly. That was a very good drive, very well-designed touchdown to A.J. Barner, leaked him wide open down the field. And then they go for 2, and it's like, oh, they don't get it. It's like, okay, it's still going to be an uphill climb. Maybe the wildest 2-point conversion I think any of us have ever seen, right? Where they try to throw a screen pass to Charbonnet. I hate the call. Why are you throwing a screen pass to a power back on the 2-yard line going for 2? Don't understand that. But it ended up being a 2-point it ended up being a backwards pass. And no one knew it. And Charbonnet, who picked up the ball in the end zone after the play was over, was just picking the ball up just to pick the ball up to give it back to the ref or bring it back to the sidelines, whatever. He didn't think anything of it. But because they ended up looking at it and seeing it was a backwards pass, Charbonnet, who picked it up without really even thinking anything of it, gets a 2-point conversion all of a sudden off of a fumble, and then it's a game, and we're tied at 30, go to overtime eventually. The Rams go down and score. Puka had a freaking legacy game, 12 catches, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, are you kidding me, Puka Nacua? It was incredible. And then it's like, okay, Rams are up 37-30, game, it's going to be tough for Seattle. They go march down the field, get the 2-point conversion, and now all of a sudden we're looking at it, and Seattle's in the driver's seat in the NFC West, and the Rams, who have looked like world beaters and looked like world beaters tonight, have lost their second game on Thursday night to a division rival this year, and both of them in devastatingly heart-crushing fashion. Both the games, I don't know if anyone remembers, maybe I'm more fond of it because I'm a 49er fan, but back earlier in the year, the Rams played the Niners on Thursday night, and it was a game that was wild and ended up going to overtime, and then the Rams lost in heartbreaking fashion in overtime in that one. Same thing happened tonight. Different games, of course, but we're looking at it, and the Rams are 0-2 on Thursday night games. Those are 2 of their biggest losses, and those are 2 losses against division opponents. Right? And I think Rams fans are going to go back, and I've heard this from a lot of Rams fans. I go to school in Southern California. So I hear from Rams fans, oh, that Niner game, the Rams lost themselves that game. It was Thursday. And now it'll probably be a similar dialogue, which they did. There was a lot of opportunities for the Rams to ice this game in this one, and they didn't. The offense went cold towards the end of the second half, right? It was a bunch of 3 and outs that really gave the Seahawks the opportunities to get back in the game. But now you've lost 2 Thursday night games against 2 division opponents who now could both place ahead of you in the standings. Right now, Seattle controls their own destiny. And right now, San Francisco controls their own destiny. LA does not. If LA wants the division, if they want a home playoff game, they need to rely on both the Niners and Seahawks losing some games, specifically Seattle, right? This is not in LA's hands anymore, right? LA has 2 variable winnable games to finish the year. They play Atlanta, they play Arizona. You would assume if they take care of business, they're going to end the year with 12 wins or 11 wins or 13 wins, whatever. So you would imagine that like the Rams are going to take care of business in the final 2 weeks. But Seattle plays Carolina, who is beatable, right? Now, granted, Carolina beat LA, and Carolina has shown some moments of brilliance this year. But like you beat Carolina, now you got to play San Francisco in Santa Clara. The Seattle ends with back-to-back road games to end the year. You know, as a Niner fan, I can't help but watch this game and think, like, the Niners have a chance to be the 1 seed. The most injured team in the league, they have a chance to be the 1 seed. Seattle, which no one, like, I think people knew Seattle would be pretty good, especially on defense coming in the year. No one thought they'd be this good. They have a chance to be the 1 seed. No one wants to go to Seattle in January. We've seen how difficult that has been for teams in the past with past Seattle teams who have had success. And now the Rams are like, you know, you got to hope Seattle loses a game. You got to hope San Francisco loses a game. Because if not, you're going to be playing road playoff games, and the Rams are good enough to go on the road and beat teams in the playoffs. I think everyone knows that. But in this current format of the NFL playoffs, having that 1 seed, having that bye, is so important. And the Rams, it just feels like, have had opportunities this year to really cement themselves as the 1 seed, to really cement themselves as the top dogs in this league. And against the Niners, against the Seahawks, and against the Panthers, they have in like high octane games, they have kind of wilted under the pressure in these like pressure situations late in games. Stafford hasn't. Stafford is clearly the MVP. He was 457-3 tonight, 457 yards and 3 touchdowns. Even though he lost the game, he's kind of cemented himself as the MVP. But, you know, I'm looking at it and I'm just like, it's hard to not go back and look at the Rams' losses from this year and think, yeah, this is like they had their opportunities to cement themselves as the 1 seed in the NFC, and they've kind of wilted under the pressure doing so. So this isn't me saying the Rams are frauds. I think the Rams are extremely legit. They're extremely scary, especially with the way Stafford's been playing. I mean, it's the MVP of the National Football League we're talking about. But it's the Rams with home field advantage, with a bye in the playoffs, are a lot scarier of a task than the Rams as a 5 seed playing some games down the stretch. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting down the stretch. You'd imagine they're going to win out, and it's just going to take a Seattle loss or 2 and a Niners loss or 2, but it's tough. But I don't want to keep talking about the Rams here. I need to talk about Seattle a little bit. Look, this past month, I have kind of been like jumping off the Seattle train. There was a point in the year after the Washington game, I posted it on my Instagram. I clipped it and posted it on the Instagram and on the YouTube Shorts, where I said I thought Seattle were the NFC favorites. And even after watching this game, I don't believe that. But tonight really proved something to me, because I was ready. I was typing up my notes for this podcast about how I was going to write Seattle off. Sam Darnold is still Sam Darnold. This offense has gone ice cold. I hate the play calling, and I still do hate the play calling in Seattle. Don't get it twisted. But like they needed like a statement slugfest win like this, and they got it. And I think this really cements them. Whereas the Rams weren't able to cement themselves as the clear top dogs in the NFC, Seattle was able to cement themselves as, yeah, we're right there with the Rams. And it was very entertaining to watch, you know. And we look at this Rams-Seahawks series this year, and both games were extremely, extremely close. And the game in LA went to the Rams, and the game in Seattle went to the Seahawks. That should show you how important home field is for these teams. And if Seattle, gets it over the Rams, and these two teams match up again in the playoffs, which there's a high probability they will, it's hard to not think back to, okay, these two teams played each other and they both won at home, so who gets the home field advantage? Right now, Seattle has the fast track to do that. Their defense, right? Yeah, they gave up a lot of yards tonight. They got ran on pretty well, right? And the Rams kind of abandoned it towards the end of the game, and I think also Seattle adjusted to it a little bit well. But Seattle is as elite of a defense as they are. They can get out physicaled sometimes. I think the Niners did it to them week 1. We were seeing the Rams. We saw the Rams do it to them earlier in this game, but when you're forcing teams to drop back with their pass rush, the different disguises Mike McDonald calls for that defense, it's pretty incredible to watch. Like, they are clearly an elite defense in the National Football League, and they're a scary task for any team. And so are the Rams, right? Like, it's hard to watch this game and not think, the Eagles are going to get a home game or two in the playoffs. And, Green Bay or Chicago is going to get a home game or two in the playoffs. And, Carolina or Tampa, who I'll talk about in a bit, they're going to get one. But, the NFC West feels different this year. It really feels like the team representing the NFC in the Super Bowl will come from that division. And I think there's more motivation for them, too, considering the Super Bowl this year and even next year, but this year is in Santa Clara. It's on the West Coast. So the Niners, with how beat up they are, and then the Rams and the Seahawks are both looking at this like, this is like if we can get the 1 seed and win a couple playoff games in our building and we get to stay on the West Coast, that's a huge, huge advantage that people don't really think about that much when it comes to Super Bowls, right? Like, it is hard, right? Travel in the NFL is hard. It's hard to get accustomed to time zones. You're not sleeping in your own bed. I mean, if the Niners somehow made it to the Super Bowl, it would be a tremendous advantage for them. And we'll talk about the Niners later in the pod when we talk about their Monday Nighter against the Colts. But this winning this NFC West division feels like not a ticket to the Super Bowl, but like this is the easiest path to the Super Bowl if you can win the NFC West. And the Rams fumbled their opportunity at it tonight, and it's going to take some other factors. They're going to play their 2 games and you would assume win, and it's going to take some external circumstances, which is the worst thing. If you're a football team, you want to be able to control your destiny. So Seattle, unbelievable win. The defense is elite. JSN, who was 0 catches coming into halftime, ended up 8 for 96 and 1. Really solid game by him. Kenneth Walker showed some shades of brilliance. And Rashid Shaheed, get this dude involved. If you're a Seahawks fan, you traded the picks for him. Get Rashid Shaheed involved in this offense, because when you put the ball in his hands like twice tonight, one time he housed it for a punt return touchdown. The other time was an end around, which was like the Kickstarter to that game tying drive, because the next play you were able to hit A.J. Barner over the top. Rashid Shaheed is a legit weapon. They gave up a good amount of draft compensation to the Saints for him. They need to get him involved, because even though Cooper Kupp had a sensational toe tap and he caught a 2-point conversion, Cooper Kupp is not like a fast, athletic player that like stresses defenses anymore. He's more of a possession go like I need you to make a catch for me guy. Shaheed will put stress on defenses, will take stress off JSN so he's not having 0 catch halves. They need to get him more involved. I'm not completely sold on the Seattle offense, but what I am sold on is that I know that they now have the ability to win these dogfights that you're going to need to win in a loaded NFC playoff picture this year. And that defense is very much elite, because they gave up 37 points, but they got the stops when it mattered most. And that's kind of all you ask for from a defense. So game of the year, in my opinion, Rams Seahawks. It was truly unbelievable to watch. Both these teams going back and forth, Seattle making it a game, the Rams letting it slip. It was awesome. And now, this final stretch of the year is going to be insane for the NFC West. And, if the Niners can win out and Seattle beats Carolina next week, there's a chance we're going into Week 18. Niners, Seahawks, probably get flexed to prime time. Whoever wins that gets the 1 seed, wins the division. And if you remember, in 2019, that exact scenario played out in Seattle. So really amazing to watch. So that is it for that game. Let's talk Week 16. Let's preview the rest of the week. I hope the rest of the week is as good as it is. If you see some pauses here, I'm live streaming this. I don't usually, I apologize. I didn't really do a proper introduction because I was so excited to talk about this game that just finished up. When I do these podcasts, I always record them, export them, put them out. I'm doing this live now. So the graphics that go on screen, everything's live. So bear with me if it's a little choppy, if the pacing's a little bad. But I want to start. There's 2 games on Saturday this week, and let's jump right into them. One game is the Eagles versus the Commanders. That's the morning game. Eagles 9-5, Commanders 4-10. I'm not going to talk in depth into that one. The Commanders that are out of the playoff picture. Jaden Daniels will not be returning this year, which is the smart move. I can't believe they were trying to rush him back from that elbow injury. Philly, with a win, clinches the NFC East, and they will be the first repeat NFC East champion in like 20 years, which is a wild stat. But with that being said, Packers, Bears, Saturday night, Soldier Field, prime time. This is going to be a hell of a game. Some real storylines coming into this one. These two teams played 2 weeks ago in Lambeau, and the Packers eked out a win. The Bears were driving down the field to try and tie the game at the end of it. And coming into this one, the Bears are 1.5-point favorites. So basically a pick'em game, 46.5-point over/under. It's hard to come into this game and not feel like the Packers stock is way more down than it was 2 weeks ago coming out of that or coming into that Bears game at Lambeau. Obviously the Parsons injury has a massive amount to do with that. Their defense, I don't want to say relies on Parsons, because we've seen this defense with most of the same personnel be very effective in years past, but their ability to move him along the line of scrimmage, run different stunts, free up other guys besides Parsons has been incredible, and it's the reason Green Bay's defense has been a top 5, top 6 defensive unit in the league this year. And now without Parsons, it's very late in the year. It's very hard to switch up what you do on defense very late in the year. And this is the type of injury that can really devastate a defense and take it from a top 5 unit to a middle of the pack unit, in my opinion. And that's what I think we'll see from the Packers, because the Packers have some good players, but what great players like Micah Parsons truly do is they elevate the players around them, free up more opportunities for the guys around them. And it just feels like with this game, this is going to be can Rashawn Gary and can these other Packers pass rushers get pressure on Caleb Williams and an elite Bears offensive line. This Bears offensive line has been dominating this year. And I just don't think they'll be able to, man. I really don't. Maybe I'll be proved wrong. Maybe Jeff Hafley and that defense, they come with a great game plan for Caleb. But, it's a short week. You're going to Chicago. It's going to be freezing, which obviously the Packers aren't. That's not nothing they're not used to. But it's going to be a freezing game at Soldier Field, prime time. The Bears fans haven't really had a prime time game to get excited about like this in a very, very long time. I think I've got the Bears in this one, man. I've been very critical of Caleb Williams, but when it's mattered most, he's led his team on game-winning drives. He made some sensational throws against the Browns. And at some point, I'm not a hater. I've just been very critical because I think it's a lot of incompletions. It's a lot of drive-ending throws, whether it's usually just balls over the heads of receivers or inaccurate balls. But, at the end of the day, when you have the arm talent and the ability to make some unbelievable throws like Caleb Williams does, I think it kind of offsets that low completion percentage and stuff. So, I think the Bears have a lot of momentum on them in coming into this game, And, for the Packers, no Parsons. Josh Jacobs, you would assume he's going to play. He's questionable. Christian Watson, you would assume he's going to play. He's questionable. Those are probably their two best weapons on offense. The Bears are without Luther Burden and Rome Odunze, so they're going to be thin in the pass-catching corps. But I don't think that matters in this one, because towards the end of that game 2 weeks ago when these two teams played, it was really the run game that started to take over, really take over for the Bears. And I think in this one, without Micah, a Packers defense playing on a short week, I think with that offensive line, I think the Bears are going to be able to give Swift the ball 20 or so times, give Monongai the ball 20 or so times, and really establish their will and win this game on the back of that offensive line and on the back of possessing the ball. So I really do like the Bears in this one as home very slight favorites in the cold Soldier Field primetime Saturday night. That'll be a fun one. And those are the two Saturday games. We'll have some more Saturday games next week and the week after, which is playoffs. We're at that time of year now where the NFL, they don't have to leave Saturdays to college football anymore. They can take it for themselves, and that's what they're going to do. Although college football playoff is this weekend. Tomorrow's Alabama-Oklahoma. I'm very excited for that one. I'm driving back home tomorrow, so hopefully I get home in time to watch that one. And then obviously 3 other games on Saturday. So this is the best time of year, right? This is an NFL and UFC podcast. And, when I watch, when I am producing content for this podcast, sometimes it feels like it's too UFC heavy. Sometimes it feels like it's too football heavy. But there's no UFC right now, and this is the best time of year for football. You just saw it tonight with Rams, Seahawks. Absolutely amazing ball is being played this time of year. I love it. This is the best time of year in general, in my opinion. And, yeah, so Sunday we got some games. And, not a crazy Sunday slate. Last week, I feel like we got pretty spoiled with how good that Sunday slate was. But tonight, tomorrow night. I'm sorry, 2 nights from now. Sorry, I've got my boy Jack texting me about Puka. I have Puka Nacua on the fantasy team. I am over the moon. I am so excited about what Puka did for my fantasy team. Job's not finished. Got to get to the championship. Other guys got to contribute. He's got a very good squad. But let's get into the Sunday games. Morning window. There's 2 games I want to talk about of note. This is the big one. This was the thumbnail. This is a game I want to talk about extensively. The 7-7 Buccaneers are playing the 7-7 Panthers. Neither of these teams feel like they want to win this division, but they both are very much in play. They play again in 2 weeks to finish the year. So, this is big because you would assume that whatever team wins this is going to be very much like in the driver's seat to win the division. Now, what Tampa Bay has working for them is in between these 2 matchups between the Bucs and the Panthers, we've got Week 17, and the Panthers play the Seahawks, which obviously are red hot coming off this. It's in Carolina, but that's a tough ask. Whereas the Buccaneers play the Dolphins with Quinn Ewers now. Tua got benched, so that game in between these 2 matchups is very much more favorable to the Buccaneers. But the Buccaneers are struggling right now, man. It has not been pretty. Baker Mayfield started the year as kind of everyone was like MVP Baker. Baker's a dog. And it's been a lot of injuries, but it just feels like his timing is off. He's very inaccurate. Balls are going all over the place, and he's dealing with shoulder injuries and all this stuff. Igbuka's production, their bright rookie wide receiver, has just plummeted this last half of the year. Obviously, they have Mike Evans back, Chris Godwin's there, Jalen McMillan's back, Bucky Irvin's back. So more of the pieces around Baker are healthy again, but Baker has just not looked right, and this offense hasn't looked right. And even fully healthy, they lost the game at home against the Falcons that they very much should have won. So, I'm a little torn on this one, because Carolina is maybe the most inconsistent team in the National Football League. This team, they go from beating the Packers and Rams to losing twice against New Orleans. And I get New Orleans as a divisional matchup, but if you're trying to be a playoff team, win your division, you got to take care of those divisional opponents that you're much better than. And the Panthers have not been able to do that, and neither have the Bucs, as we just saw with their loss last Thursday against the Falcons. So Tampa Bay are 3-point favorites in this one, road favorites. I kind of like Carolina, though, because what Carolina has shown me is when they have bad games, it's not all bad. And they show, it's very inconsistent, but I'd rather see that than basically just bad than what the Buccaneers have been showing me lately. The Buccaneers, everything's bad. That defense on the back end is really, really bad. They don't really have a pass rush anymore, and they're pretty good against the run. But Carolina, I just think more of their losses have just been play calling inconsistency, in my opinion. I like Dave Canales as a coach, but it just feels like some games the run game's not there, and he doesn't want to unleash Bryce Young, and then some games the pass game is really what he wants to focus on, but it really should be the run game. We've seen instances of that in previous weeks. When they played the Niners on Monday night a couple weeks ago, Week 12, I was at that game. The Panthers were very much running the ball very well with Rico Dowdle, but he only got 7 carries on the game because they just kept trying to throw it, and Bryce Young, it was not a game for Bryce Young. And then last week against the Saints, the run game really was not working against New Orleans, and then all of a sudden, they just need to unleash Bryce Young, but he just doesn't want to. Some games he does. He did against the Rams, but he doesn't want to. I don't know. Bryce Young, was a number 1 pick, and he is tremendously talented. And he has those stinker games, but when he has it, you got to trust him and be able to put the ball in his hands. I think we'll see that in this game. Tampa is really bad on the back end. Sounds like Tedero and McMillan's there, Jalen Coker, Xavier Legette. Obviously, they got a 1-2 punch in the backfield between Dowdle and Hubbard. I think Carolina, especially with the really good pass defense that they have, I think Carolina's a sneaky good team. They just need to show more consistency week in and week out. Whereas the Buccaneers, there's just been nothing, just absolutely nothing to be positive about in recent weeks. So give me Carolina in this one as home underdogs. I think them being at home and how bad Tampa Bay has been defending the pass this year, mixed with the ability that I hope Dave Canales just unleashes Bryce Young a little bit, lets him throw the ball around. I like Carolina in this one. The other morning game that I want to talk about, the Chargers, the 10-4 Chargers take on the 6-7-1 Cowboys. I'm not even going to make the joke. This was crazy to me, crazy. Dallas are 1.5-point favorites. 1.5-point favorites at home, coming off of a week where they lost to Minnesota and J.J. McCarthy in 9 at home. kind of wild to me that a 6-win team is home favorites against a 10-win team when the 10-win team's beaten the Eagles and Chiefs in back-to-back weeks. But, I kind of understand the skepticism on the Chargers a little bit. They're so beat up on the O-line. Justin Herbert has a broken left hand. But I think people need to start realizing that this Chargers defense is as good as any units in the league, and they're as physical as any units in this league. Like, these guys hit you, and they don't really give up a ton of big plays. So I think that, people are enamored by, okay, it's in Dallas. The Chargers have been playing great ball, but the reason the Chargers have been in back-to-back ugly games is because their defense has held up so strong. It's made those score totals a little lower. I think the Cowboys couldn't defend current day Steve Young at quarterback, current day Dan Marino at quarterback. They're so bad on the back end. DeRon Bland looks like he's getting a second foot surgery. They're so bad on the back end. And, the run defense has improved a little bit, but Quentin Williams is in concussion protocol. Whether he plays or not, I do not know. I just think that for a Chargers offense that has been struggling a little bit, this is the matchup to get it right against one of the most atrocious pass defenses that we've ever seen in NFL history. And then on the flip side, even though Dallas's offense is good, I don't know if it's as good as the Chargers defense is, in my personal opinion. So, back-to-back games where I'm taking the underdog to win, and it feels a little ticky-tacky, but I just think the Panthers at home, and I think the Chargers coming off of 2 wins, and the Cowboys basically getting eliminated from playoff contention. It would take them winning 3 straight games and Philadelphia losing 3 straight games, which probably isn't going to happen. So I like the Chargers in this one. Don't get cute, right? Vegas wants you to get cute and think, oh, the Cowboys, home favorites, the offense, whatever. The Chargers are a playoff caliber team. Are they Super Bowl caliber? Probably because of the injuries up front on the O-line and with Herbert. Probably not. But Dallas is not playoff caliber. They're eliminated from the playoffs. That defense is atrocious. I think we could see one of Herbert's better games statistically in a while, and the Chargers get the win. So that's my thoughts on that one. Other morning games, not really anything crazy to write home about. You got the 10-4 Bills taking on the 3-11 Browns. You would imagine the Bills try to take care of business and get another step closer to clinching a playoff berth like the Chargers are trying to do against Dallas. The 6-8 Chiefs, without Mahomes, without Rashee Rice, looks like, are going to Tennessee to play the 2-12 Titans. I could see Tennessee winning this game, to be honest. I mean, Cam Ward's actually been playing a lot better in recent weeks. He's starting to figure some things out a little bit, despite having just absolutely zero weapons to help him on offense. And Kansas City, we have never seen them play meaningless football like this down the stretch. And I could just see a lot of the vets who aren't used to it just packing it in. I mean, Kelsey's probably packing it in for his career. He's probably done. So the 4-10 Bengals take on the 6-8 Dolphins. That'll be kind of interesting seeing Quinn Ewers taking over for Tua. I'm not really sure. Burrow's still playing. There's been some talk of if Burrow's going to leave Cincinnati. I don't think he's going to leave Cincinnati, but I don't blame him. He's had so many injuries and stuff. I wouldn't be in a good place mentally either if I were in his position. So I do not blame Joe Burrow at all. And then the 6-8 Vikings taking on the 2-12 Giants, and the 3-11 Jets taking on the 4-10 Saints. Not a ton to look out for from those matchups unless you're playing fantasy options, because it is fantasy football season, and I hope everyone's having a good fantasy football playoffs. As I was talking about, I do have Puka in my main league, and I am over the moon with how he played. Not over the moon with how Colby Parkinson played. I shouldn't have started him, but it's fantasy playoff season. I need to talk more about fantasy football because I love fantasy football, and Offsetting Penalties started as strictly fantasy football. Now it's obviously expanded a little bit more, but yeah. Let's talk some afternoon games. This, in my opinion, might be game of the week, and a sneaky game of the week. I don't think this was a game anyone had on their radar for a while. The 10-4 Jaguars are taking on the 12-2 Denver Broncos. The Broncos, who have not lost since Week 3 against the Chargers. Week 3 was the last time the Denver Broncos lost a game. The Jaguars are also red hot, though. The Jaguars are very hot. The offense is clicking. Trevor Lawrence had a vintage game last week. Granted, it was against the Jets, but I think people need to start respecting Liam Cohen a lot more. Liam Cohen was great with Will Levis in Kentucky, came to Tampa Bay, was great with Baker, and now we're seeing Baker in that Tampa offense falling off a little bit now that he's gone. He comes to Jacksonville. It took him a little bit, but the acquisition of Jacoby Myers has been so good for this offense, and it just feels like they're clicking between the run game with ETN, Trevor Lawrence throwing it down the field to Jacoby, and now Brian Thomas is back, and he's getting a little more involved than he was earlier in the year. This Jaguars team is great, but don't get it mistaken. You're going to Denver to play the best, like statistically, I mean, record-wise, they are the best team in the NFL, a team that is hungry for the 1 seed. This is a tall task for the Jaguars because as great as the Jaguars have been, and they've won some against some great teams like the Chargers. They had a game against the Texans. They let it slip out of their hands. But as great as the Jaguars have been in recent weeks, they haven't played anyone of the Broncos' caliber. And not only have they not played anyone of the Broncos' caliber, they haven't gone to Denver. The Denver Broncos are 7-0 at home this year. They're 7-0, which is pretty wild to think about, and that's pretty scary to think about if you're an AFC teams fan and your team has to go play in Denver, in the altitude, in the cold, in January, right? We talk about cold weather all the time, right? It's this time of year with the NFL, teams going to, whether it's Pittsburgh, New England, Kansas City, Chicago, Green Bay, right? Like it's cold weather everywhere in the Midwest and Northeast. But Denver cold weather is unique because you don't get that altitude anywhere else. You don't get that mix of that really cold temperature and that altitude that has you constantly gasping for air. And, for a warm weather team like the Jaguars, how are they going to respond this week? I don't know what the weather conditions are like for this game. I don't care if it's snowing or raining or what. It's going to be cold and it's going to be at altitude. So how do the Jaguars respond? We'll see. I don't know. But if I had to go with my gut, I'm taking the Broncos. They're 3-point favorites here. The game's at a 46.5 point over/under. I just think they've been so good at home, and as great as the Jaguars have been, and losing to the Broncos would not lower their stock a bunch, in my opinion. I just think to go play the hottest team in the NFL, who finally got the pass offense going last week. I mean, Bo Nix had his best game of his career where he was finally pushing the ball down the sidelines. Troy Franklin, Cortland Sutton, they looked awesome last week. And, yeah, I think we go Denver 3-point favorites. I just think that's a safe and easy bet if you're going to bet on this one. And I like the Broncos outright to beat the Jaguars. Not to disrespect the Jaguars in any way. I just think it's a tall task for a warm weather team from Florida to go play in altitude in December against a team that's as hot as the Broncos are. Next afternoon game I want to talk about, we're going to go to Detroit for this one, another cold weather place, but obviously getting played in a dome. The 8-6 Steelers taking on the 8-6 Lions. This is a big game for both teams, but kind of do or die for the Lions here. Kind of do or die here. And that's kind of crazy to talk about because last year they had won 15 games and they felt so dominant. But, they kind of need this because if they want any chance of making the playoffs, they really got to win out. And they're looking up at some teams like the Bears, like the Packers, like the 49ers, and they need to win out and they need some serious help from those teams, like in terms of them losing. And whether those teams lose and drop out of the playoff picture, Detroit can't handle that. But what Detroit can handle is beating a Steelers team that is coming off of, they're looking really good. They're coming off of a really good performance against the Miami Dolphins on Monday night. But, you got to factor in, okay, short week, right? You're playing a Lions team that, just traveled from LA, but the offense really found some rhythm in that game. And for me, the reason I'm kind of leaning Lions in this one is just simply because to me this is like strength on strength and weakness on weakness, and both kind of favors the Lions. I think that the Steelers defense, even though it hasn't been great this year, is very clearly the strength of their team. But the Lions offense, like if it's clicking, should be able to run laps around that Steelers defense. And on the flip side, the Lions' big exploit, this is what teams have really been exploiting with them this year, and that's especially what the Rams did last week, is they're really bad on the back end, right? Like they really have a tough time guarding the pass, and this isn't exactly a strength of the Steelers. Rodgers hasn't really had like a good passing game this year. He's been efficient, but there hasn't been any high yardage shuttle games. They're just very content with this Arthur Smith offense of dumping the ball down and running the ball with Gainwell and Calvin Austin dump-offs, and it's just like odd. I think it'll be a big DK Metcalf game, but I just think that the Steelers, the way that their offense operates, I just don't know if it's going to be enough for them to be able to, take advantage and win this game. Take advantage of this Detroit secondary. So I do like the Steelers in this one, but if the Steelers lose, it's not the end of the world, but like it would be very, very helpful for them to continue to have a game up on the Ravens and stuff, because right now it's Steelers or Ravens that's going to win the North, and the Ravens looked much better against Cincy last week. Now I'll talk about the Ravens here in a sec, but yeah, if you're the Steelers, you need this game, but if you're the Lions, you need this game. And I just think with that desperation and the way schematically things align, I like the Lions here. They're 7-point favorites. I don't know if I take that 7 points with the Lions, but if I'm just picking the game outright, I like Detroit in this one, as I'm sure most people do. Besides that game, there's a couple other late window games. You've got the Raiders and Texans, which I think if anyone knows the acronym BTA, I'm trying to stay very professional on this podcast, trying to get my image up. But BTA, if you know what that means, that's what this game is going to be. The Texans have the number 1 defense in the league. The Raiders have by far the worst offense in the league. I could see this game just getting very, very out of hand quick. Geno Smith back, though, so maybe the Raiders will score 13 points, not 10 this week. And then the 5-9 Falcons take on the 3-11 Cardinals. Kind of a meaningless game, but there will be some fantasy points to be scored, and I will talk a little bit about that game a little later in the new segment coming up a little later. Yeah, you hear that? New segment. We're upgrading here at Offsetting Penalties. We're live streaming now, and we're doing new segments. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Let's talk Sunday Night Football. I just mentioned them. The Ravens, 7-7. They're at home. They're taking on the 11-3 New England Patriots. Crazy to think that the Patriots are 11-3, but they're coming off of a loss to Buffalo at home. I watched that game, though, and yeah, the Patriots had some opportunities to win that game. I really think that game, more than anything, was just a Josh Allen superhuman effort. And we've seen this the past couple of weeks that the Bills have won. Just Josh Allen going nuclear, being the best player in the entire freaking football league. So my stock isn't necessarily that much down on the Patriots, but Drake May is inexperienced, right? He's in his second year, and you saw that a little bit in that game. We might see that a little bit in the playoffs. This is a big game for New England because the Bills play the Browns this week, and if the Bills win, like we think they will, they're only a game back from the Patriots. And if the Patriots lose this game, which isn't a walk in the park, as we know, going to Baltimore, prime time, if Lamar continues to improve a little bit from what he had been playing like earlier in this year, this is a sneaky game. So the Ravens are 3-point favorites in this one, which surprised me a little bit, but I understand it. 48.5-point over-under. The Patriots, they're coming off of that L. It took Allen playing like a demon. I just don't know if Lamar, this current iteration, 2025 Lamar Jackson, can play like Josh Allen did last week. Because Lamar has not been pretty this year. Now, last week against the Bengals, it looked a little better, but he only attempted like 12 passes or completed like 12 passes, right? And that was against the worst defense in the National Football League in the Bengals. You're playing a considerably better Patriots defense. Now, granted, no Milton Williams, which is a big deal because he helps their run defense a lot. But this is one of the best run defenses in the entire National Football League. And right now, the way I look at it, if the Ravens want to win, they got to ride Derrick Henry. And I'm a little skeptical that they'll be able to against this defense in this game, especially with Lamar not really using his legs very much ever since he came back from the injuries. He takes a lot of bad sacks. I just feel like against a much better defense like the Patriots than what they played last week in the Bengals, I don't know if those go balls to Zay Flowers are going to be there. I don't know if you're going to get a guy wide open in the flats and be able to run it 30 yards. I just don't see the Patriots giving up those plays on film like you see the Bengals doing literally every single drive this year. I cannot stress how bad the Cincinnati Bengals defense is. But, yeah, I like Baltimore in this one. I like New England in this one. I like Baltimore to lose this one, was what I was trying to get at. Because Lamar has shown me nothing to prove that he's back 100% from the injuries. The sacks are bad. He's not really taking off with his legs as much as he usually is. And that's a huge part of that Ravens offense. That Ravens offense does not function if Lamar doesn't take off with his legs, use his legs. So I just think the Patriots are going to load the box. They're going to challenge the Ravens to throw down the field. And I think between Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis, I just think that the Patriots have good enough DBs to be able to load the box and say, hey, Ravens, throw the ball down the field. I don't know if they're going to be able to. So I know Vegas likes the Ravens in this one. I personally do not. I like the Patriots, and I think that there's a couple games this week like Patriots-Ravens, like Cowboys-Chargers, like Bucks, Panthers, where teams like these underdogs, like these like road teams coming in, or these like sneaky good picks, and I'm not over it. Don't overthink these. Don't overthink it. The Patriots have been the way better team this year, and the offense still looked great against the Bills. I think it'll look great against the Ravens. Give me New England in this one. Give me Drake May back on the MVP train, even though I think Matthew Stafford probably has it locked up at this point. Yeah. And then the final game of the week, and this is a fun game. This is a unique game. The Niners, the 10-4 Niners, who I was talking about very extensively when I was talking about Rams Seahawks earlier, they're going to Indy to play the 8-6 Colts. I think most people, including Vegas, because Vegas has this as Niners 5.5-point favorites, 46.5-point over-under. I think most people look at this game and think this is a no-brainer win for the Niners. I promise you it's not. I promise you this will be a close game one way or the other. Primetime Philip Rivers, that's what everyone's going to be talking about, and rightfully so. Primetime Uncle Phil. Didn't look horrible last week against Seattle. Didn't look great. He's not, the arm talent is not there. He didn't throw any balls with velocity. Everything was check downs, line of scrimmage. But, clearly the processing is there, and clearly they just want him to conduct the offense. And really, I think that's all they need him to do this week to beat the Niners. Last week they played a really good defense in Seattle, and it was a close game against Seattle. This week, you're playing the Niners, who are completely beat up on the defensive end and have been giving up a ridiculous amount of yards on the ground this year. Jonathan Taylor has been rough recently, and the reason it's been rough is because he's been playing teams like the Jaguars, like the Texans, like Seattle. He played Denver early, and he had a good game against Denver early in the year. But he's been playing these really good run defenses. This is his softest matchup in a while. Right, in a while. So I think we could legitimately see with that O-line, Jonathan Taylor having another one of those early season fantasy winning games. But the Niners are hot. They've won quite a few games in a row now. The offense, even though Pearsall's status is up in the air for this one, finally feels like it's cohesive and clicking again between Purdy, McCaffrey, Jennings is getting involved, Kittle looks like Kittle. This Niners offense has looked really good. What makes me hesitant on this one, and the reason why I will not be taking Niners minus 5.5 in this one, I still think the Niners win, but I think it's closer than 5.5 points, is just because of the simple fact that Brock Purdy is historically bad on Monday Night Football. He should not be bad on Monday Night Football, but he is. He two of his worst games I've ever seen him play, the Carolina game earlier in the year and the Baltimore game on Christmas 2 years ago, those were both Monday night games. He's just always been really bad on Monday night. I don't know what it is, and I know that might be one of those football stats I shouldn't be reading in too much, but, being a Niner fan watching these games, it's Monday night Purdy versus regular Purdy, feels night and day to me. So I do think this will be a much closer game than people are giving it credit for, just with Indy's ability to run the ball, possess the ball against a beat-up Niners defense, and Brock Purdy struggles on Monday night. At the end of the day, what just happened with Rams Seahawks, the Niners don't have an excuse to lose this game, though. Right? You got to take care of business here. You got to give yourself a chance to win the 1 seed. The Super Bowl is in Santa Clara this year, and even though you're beat up, right, you got to give yourself the best opportunity you can to go on a playoff run, because if you go deep into the playoffs, 54 Fred Warner might be back for the 49ers. Win these next 3 games, and they're all tough. Indy's not easy. Chicago's certainly not easy, and obviously Seattle is not easy. But you got to take care of business if you can. So that is my read on this game. I like the Niners, but at a 5.5 point tag, no, I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be an ugly game, like a lot of these Sunday Niners have been. But it is what it is. I do think the Niners end up getting it done. And that's it for NFL Week 16 preview. But before you go, anyone listening, before you go, new segment. I promised this a couple weeks ago, and I got caught with finals and other things, and I've been able to consistently get back to this podcast, but we're here now. I want to do a weekly DFS segment. So without further ado, this is my DFS lineup made on DraftKings, $50,000 budget. Some of these odds might change, or some of these price tags on players might change, but this is prior to this recording on Thursday night at 9:53 p.m. This is the lineup that I have in. So let's start. Quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, $5,300. Now, you might think I'm crazy for this, which I don't blame you at all. Jacoby Brissett, fantasy-wise, ever since he took over the Arizona job, has been a top 12 quarterback in fantasy every week, right? The Cardinals lose these games. They get down in these games because their defense is so bad. And Jacoby Brissett just slings the ball around and has been unbelievable. So I like Jacoby Brissett here for a smaller price tag and leaves me some money elsewhere. I got Jonathan Taylor as my first running back. I was literally just talking about it. This is his first plus matchup in a while, and I think that the Niners give up have a high yards per carry allowed on the year. I think Jonathan Taylor, it's a very strong possibility he rips off a chunk gain or two. I like that. And then I went cheap on my second running back. I went Kamani Vidal, the Chargers running back in Dallas for $5,300. JT was $8,000, by the way, for those listening. Kamani Vidal, $5,300. He's been out snapping Omarion Hampton since Omarion Hampton came back, and this is a great matchup. Dallas, they've tidied up the run defense a little bit more, but I do think without Quinnen Williams or with a coming into the game concussed Quinnen Williams that hasn't been in the lineup, Kamani Vidal in a matchup where the Chargers should score points. He is the back that gets about as many touches as Hampton and sees the field more than Hampton, runs more routes than Hampton. I think the pass catching will be there. I think there's a chance he rips off a big gain. So give me Kamani Vidal as my second running back. Then the wide receivers. This is where I definitely spent kind of up a little bit, but instead of going for some alpha wide receivers, I just went with 4 great ones, including my flex. I went Michael Wilson. I play him in fantasy this week. I'm horrified of this man. This man is the second coming of Jerry Rice ever since Jacoby Brissett entered the lineup. Now, if Marvin Harrison plays this week, I would imagine this price tag will go down on DFS. If it does, I would still take him and spend money elsewhere, whether that's at running back for Kamani Vidal or something, or at tight end, which I'll talk about in a bit with Oronde Gadsden. But Michael Wilson, stack him with Jacoby Brissett against the Atlanta Falcons, who have been statistically one of the worst pass defenses in the last couple of weeks. I do like that a lot. Give me Jameson Williams home against the Steelers. The Steelers have been really bad on the back end this year. Jameson Williams, ever since Dan Campbell took over, has been red hot. Need him for the fantasy team. He's been awesome. I like him a lot. In that same game, I'll skip down to the flex. DK Metcalf, I talked about it a little bit earlier. Detroit has been really bad on the back end. We saw in that Miami game, when you get the ball in DK's hands, good things happen. I think they'll try and get the ball in his hands a little bit more this game. I could see him getting a touchdown just with how bad that Lions secondary has been. And then as that final wide receiver, give me Teteroa McMillan, right? He's off the injury report. Sounds like he's good. I was just talking about it. That's the theme with all 4 of these wide receivers. They have very much plus matchups. Teteroa McMillan's taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just gave up a legacy game against David Sills. I repeat, David Sills. If you know who David Sills is, then good for you. On Thursday night, I think Teteroa McMillan is a smash start. I think Dave Canales will let Bryce Young throw the ball a little bit more in this one, so I like Tet. At tight end, Oronde Gadsden, $4,100. This one I cheaped out a little bit, and I just kind of thought, okay, Quentin Johnson's been on the injury report. Trey Harris has been on the injury report. I think Dallas will let the Chargers push the ball a little more down the field. Dallas is really bad at linebacker. I think Oronde Gadsden could be in for a couple big gains or a touchdown at the very least. And then at defense, I got the Minnesota Vikings. Since Jackson Dart came back from his concussion, they haven't been dialing up as many design runs, partially because it's a different play caller. It's not Brian Dable anymore. It's Mike Kafka. So I think that without those design runs, the Giants' offense has been struggling. Minnesota's defense is very much opportunistic between getting sacks, forcing fumbles, picks. So I like them to round out my first ever DFS fantasy lineup. So in summary, at quarterback, I got Jacoby Brissett, $5,300. At running back, I got Jonathan Taylor, $8,000. Kamani Vidal, $5,300. At wide receiver, I've got Michael Wilson, $6,900. Jameson Williams, $6,400. Teteroa McMillan, $5,800. Oronde Gadsden at tight end for $4,100. DK Metcalf as my flex at $5,400. And then the Vikings defense at a cool, small little $2,800 price tag. And that is my DFS segment. I look forward to doing this in the future, especially for the playoffs, because I think the playoffs will be fun. I got some big stuff planned for the future of this podcast. It's been finals, everybody. It has been finals. And, for a college student, even though I'm a communications major, my finals week has been pretty easy for the most part. I like finals week, there's a lot going on, so I apologize for the lack of consistent content. The new thing, if people aren't aware, on Mondays, my boy Zach, Game Time Gretsch, me and him are doing he comes on the pod every Monday night. We live stream it so that we can break down whatever week that we're just on. So on Monday, me and him will recap the week. I would imagine. And, between that, these episodes, when UFC resumes back up, I want to do a UFC year in review podcast. There's stuff to come on this podcast. I apologize. It's been a little bit, there hasn't been as much content lately. I promise I'm going to get back to it now that school's over. I don't have to worry about that. I'm going home, so I got to get the setup and the Wi-Fi and everything figured out at home. But feels really good. And, yeah, so if anyone's here live, I appreciate you more than you could ever realize. I doubt anyone is in here live, but regardless of that, thank you everybody who is here. I appreciate you a lot. And if anyone's listening after the fact, because this will get posted to YouTube and Spotify as a podcast, I appreciate you too. Sorry, it's a little all over the place. Getting used to this new doing it live, putting the graphics on screen live, but makes my life easier. I think it's more engaging. I think it's more fun. And hopefully we get this Instagram thing figured out. So thank you to everyone who's been here. I love y'all. Win your fantasy football matchups, except for you, Jack. If you're listening, Jack, I want to beat you and go to the fantasy championship. Besides Jack, my boy, anyone else, good luck in fantasy football this week. Good luck watching your teams play. It's the final stretch. It's the best time of year for football. I'm so excited. I got to pack my bags. I'm driving home tomorrow. Love everyone. Catch you.